I'm sorry, Trent Franks, Congressman Franks, thanks very much. This is your first time on the show. I want to give you a full time. First of all, stepping back and watching the Democrats debate, whether you watched last night or you're just watching it in general, what do you make of the fact that the three front runners are the most cautious? They're calculating. They don't want to end the war. Really, they want to sort of oppose the war. They don't seem to want to end it. What's that? How do you read that politically?
Well, you know, Chris, I have to say that I think one of the most potent weapons that liberal Democrats have is their willingness to say whatever the people they think want to hear. And they did that in the election. They knew that it was a disingenuous position at the time. But I think something's happening now where even in the cloud of liberal thinking, the truth of what we're really facing in jihadist terrorism is starting to seep through, and they know it's happening with the rest of the nation. And so I think that is the basis of their caution. You know,
so you believe that Hillary Clinton really does want to keep our troops, that she's genuinely supportive of a U.S. military commitment to Iraq through the next presidential term, all the way through, continue keeping troops there?
I didn't say that at all. I said that she thinks that's what the people want to hear right now. And the bottom line.
So she's a fraud.
The bottom line is that you mentioned about you know, this notion that whether we would send our own children.
Sure. Well, that's what the author. I think it's a good question.
I think it's a very good question, and it really speaks to even the broader question, and that is, what will happen to all of our children in the future if we fail in Iraq? It will supercharge terrorist efforts all over the world, and I believe with all of my heart that if we do not deal with jihadist ideology effectively in this generation, perhaps even in this generation, the children of this country will see nuclear IEDs in America.
Okay, let me ask you, I'll ask you, Mr. Moran, about this question. If we stay, I want to ask you the values question. If we stay in Iraq with our troops supporting the Shia side of the fight, because that's what we're doing, we're arming the Shia majority, and the Sunni revert to their warrior past, and they decide to take over the country. Is that our position? Mr. Franks said we should take sides with the Shia against what he calls the jihadists. Well, the jihadists are the Sunnis, sir.
The fact is that our number one foe in Iraq is Al-Qaeda in Iraq. That is the fact.
They're Sunnis. They're the Sunni Iraqis. That's who they are. And you're saying we have to defeat them.
They're the people trying to kill our soldiers, and yes, I do say that we have to defeat them.
That means someone has to defeat them. That means the Shia have to defeat them. Somebody has to win in Iraq, right?
Yes, and it has to be the cause of freedom. It has to be America.
Well, that's a word. What side do you want to win over there?
I want the side of freedom to prevail. I want to see Iraq be a freestanding government so that they can stop terrorism and completely overriding that situation and become completely overrun by Iran.
Filibuster, who do you want to win the war in Iraq over there? Which side of the fight over there? We can't win. We're coming home eventually. Who do you want to be there when we leave? Who do you want running the show when we leave?
I want to see a freestanding government in Iraq that can defeat terrorism and stave off the challenge that Iran faces to dominate that region entirely.
And in other words, you want, but the Shia are identified with Iran.
Well, there may be different factions that may have some different advantages, but if we see a free government in Iraq where they have been having elections since they were called Babylon, we could see something happen here that could germinate peace and even an ideal of freedom in the Middle East that may turn the whole of humanity in a better direction.
When we look back on this, what we're going to have is a Shia theocracy far more loyal to Iran than it is to the United States, and equally repressive of women's rights and human rights. If we put half of the troops we've put into Iraq into getting rid of Al-Qaeda where it is in Pakistan, that we would have eliminated our real jihadist threat, the people who actually did attack us. Again, Chris, I think we need to stay focused, and our focus should not be on Iraq. It should be on the headquarters of Al-Qaeda, and the headquarters of Al-Qaeda is certainly not in Iraq.
Mr. Moran might have a point in taking on Al-Qaeda in Pakistan. Maybe he's advocating us moving on Pakistan, I don't know. But the fact remains is that the terrorists themselves, Al-Qaeda themselves, Osama bin Laden himself, see Iraq as the front line on their war with the, quote, great Satan of America.
Only because we made it the front line, Trent. Well, we're not going to
Osama bin Laden is saying that. If it's not a part of the war on terrorism, then you need to explain that to the terrorists, Mr. Moran, because they don't understand.
Your last word, Mr. Franks, I wanted to just give you a chance to underline your basic assessment of the Democratic candidates for president. You believe the top candidates last night and throughout this debate are posing as more hawkish than they are. Is that what you're saying?
Unfortunately, I believe that the liberal intelligentsia in the Democratic Party is willing to sacrifice the cause of freedom and the best for America for the sake of political expediency. Yes, I'm afraid that's true.
Okay, thank you very much, Congressman Trent Franks of Arizona. Thank you, Jim Moran, Congressman from Northern Virginia. Senator Larry